I have to admit, I was completely taken in by this pitch deck when I first opened it.
Oh, it is incredibly convincing.
Right. Because I review a lot of startup materials for these deep dives, the Series A decks, the seed round proposals, and there's a very specific aesthetic that it just screams competence.
Yes, that polished Silicon Valley look.
Exactly. And this company, Golden Acres, they just completely nailed it. I'm looking at the opening slide right now, and it's this beautiful, minimalist design, lots of negative space. The color palette is all sage greens, soft, earthy beiges.
Maybe a slate gray for the text.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's very calming. It signals safety. It signals nature. It's essentially the visual language of the modern wellness industry.
Totally.
If you put this next to a pitch for, say, a meditation app or a high-end organic mattress, you really wouldn't be able to do the difference.
I mean, the copy itself is poetry. They aren't just selling food. They're selling a philosophy. I'm seeing phrases like regenerative agriculture, hyperlocal sourcing, and the big one,
ESG Platinum certified.
yes, ESG Platinum certified. For you listening who might not be deep in the corporate sustainability weeds, that is environmental, social, and governance. It's the gold standard for showing your investors that you aren't just, evil capitalists, but you're actually saving the world while you make money.
That certification is key here. It's a signaling mechanism. It tells the venture capitalist, hey, we have checked the boxes. We are safe to invest in. You won't get canceled for backing us.
Right.
It sort of bypasses the critical part of the brain that asks, what do you actually do? And it goes straight to the part that wants to feel like a good person.
I mean, look at this graph on page 3. It's titled Protein Efficiency versus Carbon Footprint. They're showing a 90% reduction in methane emissions compared to traditional cattle farming.
Which VCs absolutely love.
Yeah, they have a closed-loop waste system. They highlight ethically sourced and humanely raised in this bold sans serif font.
If I'm a VC sitting in a boardroom in Palo Alto and I'm looking for the next Beyond Meat or the next big sustainable protein play, I am practically throwing money at these people. You'd be foolish not to, based on the metrics alone. They're promising high margins, low environmental impact, and a product that appeals to the conscientious consumer. It's the perfect storm of 2024-era venture capital. It ticks every single box.
It really does. It feels like the future of food.
But comes.
Yeah, here is where I need to take a breath. Because I was reading through the product specification section. I was looking for the source. Is it pea protein? Is it lab-grown cell culture? Is it like crickets? And I got to the line item for biological source.
And that's where the sleek sage green aesthetic hits a brick wall.
Yeah. It says source, Canis lupus familiaris. Now, my Latin is a little rusty, so I actually Googled it just to be sure, thinking maybe it was a type of wolf or something exotic, but no.
No, it's not a wolf.
It's America's favorite dog breed, the golden retriever. This entire pitch deck, the sustainability, the humane raising, the beautiful branding, it's for a company that sells dog meat, specifically golden retrievers.
And just like that, the perfect investment becomes a horror movie.
It's an absolute gut punch. I genuinely felt sick. But once the nausea fades, you realize what we are actually looking at. This isn't a real company, thank goodness.
Right.
This is a piece of satire. It's a conceptual art piece, almost. But the reason we are doing a deep dive on it today isn't because of the shock value. It's because of how long it took me to realize it was a horror show.
That delay is the entire point.
Right.
If they had opened with, we kill dogs for food, you would have closed the document immediately.
Instantly.
But they didn't. They led with sustainability. They led with efficiency. They used the language of corporate ethics to mask something that is socially taboo. The mission of this deep dive is to unpack how they did that. Because the scary thing isn't the dog meat. The scary thing is that the marketing works.
So let's go back to the text, knowing what we know now. The first thing that jumps out at me is the word harvested. Throughout the document, they never say slaughtered or killed. They say responsibly harvested.
Harvested is a fascinating choice. It's agricultural. We harvest wheat, we harvest corn, we might harvest shellfish. When you use that word for a mammal, you are engaging in a psychological process called linguistic distancing.
Linguistic distancing.
Yes. You are deliberately choosing a word that strips the subject of its agency and its capacity for suffering. You don't harvest a friend. You harvest a resource.
It completely turns the animal into a crop.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And notice the modifier there. Responsibly. That's doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Oh, for sure.
Responsibly harvested sounds so professional, so measured, it implies that there is a correct way to do it. It stops you from asking if it should be done and focuses you entirely on how it is being done. As long as the process is responsible, we just assume the act is moral.
That is a terrifying distinction. It reminds me of how we talk about clean coal or surgical strikes. We modify the noun to make it palatable.
It's the sanitation of language. And the source material doubles down on this with the term sustainable protein. Now, technically, looking at the charts provided in the source,
Which are disturbingly detailed, by the way.
very detailed. But raising dogs for meat would actually be more sustainable than raising cattle. They reproduce faster, they eat less, they take up less space. The math holds up.
And that's the trap. I found myself looking at the feed conversion ratio slide and thinking, wow, those are great numbers. Then I remembered we were talking about puppies. But for a split second, the data overrode my empathy.
That is what good branding does. It creates an abstraction. You aren't imagining a golden retriever named Buddy catching a frisbee. You are looking at a bar chart of protein yield per square foot.
Right.
The source material is critiquing how venture capital and modern business metrics strip the humanity, or in this case the animality, out of the equation. It reduces a living, breathing creature to a data point.
There's this one section that I think is the absolute peak of this linguistic gymnastics. It's the slide titled Product Categorization. They address the elephant in the room or the dog in the room. They know people are going to freak out about eating a pet, so they introduce this term.
Companion-grade protein.
Companion-grade protein.
That is just chillingly brilliant.
It sounds premium. It sounds like sushi grade or military grade.
It does. It takes the very thing that makes the act hideous, the fact that these are companion animals, and turns it into a value proposition.
That is so twisted.
Companion grade implies high quality. It implies these animals were loved, well-fed, and happy, which, in the logic of the pitch, makes the meat better.
It's utilizing that happy meat narrative. We see this in the grocery store every single day for you and me. Glass-fed, free-range, pasture-raised. We want to believe the animal lived a Disney movie life before it magically appeared as a steak on our plate.
Exactly.
Golden Acres just takes that to its logical, absurd conclusion. If happy meat is better, should not we eat the animals that have the happiest lives?
And that forces the listener to confront a massive contradiction. We claim to care about animal welfare. We pay extra for the humane label. But this source asks, if the treatment is humane, does the species really matter? If Golden Acres treats these dogs better than the average factory farm treats a pig, why is the dog sandwich wrong and the pulled pork sandwich right?
I hate that question. I hate how uncomfortable that makes me, because my gut reaction is, well, because it's a dog, it's different. But if I look at the logic of the pitch deck, I can't find the flaw in the math.
That's because the flaw isn't in the math. The flaw is in the premise.
Yeah.
But the pitch deck is designed to keep you focused on the math. This is a classic magician's trick.
Misdirection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Look at the ESG score. Look at the carbon footprint. Look at the beautiful font. Just don't look at the eyes of the animal.
Let's talk about the business logic a bit more, because the source material dives into what they call redefining legacy protein verticals. Now, I've sat in on tech pitches. Legacy is a dirty word. If you have legacy code or legacy infrastructure, you are a dinosaur. You need to be disrupted.
In Silicon Valley, legacy is code for obsolete. By labeling cows, chickens, and pigs as legacy protein verticals, Golden Acres is framing the traditional meat industry as an old version of software that needs an update.
So the dog isn't a pet anymore. It's the upgrade. It's the iPhone 16 of meat.
Precisely. It reframes a moral taboo as a market inefficiency. The pitch argues that we are ignoring a massive available resource like stray populations or breeding surplus simply because of cultural stigma.
Wow.
And to a pure capitalist, a stigma is just a barrier to entry. If you can break the stigma, you unlock the market.
That is such a cold way to look at the world. Unlocking value by ignoring social contracts. The source material actually portrays the founders as having this calm, enthusiastic startup investor energy. I can hear their voices. They are wringing their hands like cartoon villains. They are smiling. They are excited about the opportunity.
That's the banality of evil updated for the LinkedIn generation. They aren't trying to be cruel. They're trying to be optimized. The source text has a note for the presenters to carefully avoid emotional implication.
Right, because emotion is bad for business.
Exactly. They view emotion as an inefficiency. If you are emotional, you aren't making rational business decisions. So they strip the emotion out completely.
But isn't that what we tell business leaders to do? Be data-driven. Don't let feelings get in the way of the facts.
We do. And that's why this satire stings so much. It holds a mirror up to that mindset and shows us where it leads if you take the brakes off. If you are purely data-driven, and the data says golden retrievers are a more sustainable protein source than cows, Then the rational business move is to start Golden Acres. The only thing stopping us is emotion, the very thing the pitch deck tells us to ignore.
There is a moment in the dialogue provided in the source where an imaginary investor pushes back. They ask, but isn't that just a dog? It's the one moment where reality pierces the bubble.
And look at the rebuttal. The founders don't say yes. They pivot immediately back to the category. They say, we prefer the term livestock.
Category determines protection. That's the phrase that really stuck with me.
It is the central thesis of the piece. We think we have moral absolutes, but really, we have boxes. If an animal is in the pet box, it gets a name, it gets medical care, it sleeps on the bed. If an animal is in the livestock box, it is a unit of production, gets a number, not a name.
Yeah.
The source is showing us that those boxes are completely arbitrary. They are just labels we apply.
And Golden Acres is basically saying we are just moving this animal from box A to box B.
Right. And once it's in box B, the livestock box, the rules change. Suddenly, harvesting it is acceptable. Suddenly, calculating its yield is standard business practice. The animal hasn't changed. Its intelligence hasn't changed. Its capacity for pain hasn't changed. Only the label on the spreadsheet has changed.
That is terrifyingly applicable to things outside of this satire. I mean, we do this with people too, don't we? We change the label and suddenly the treatment changes.
We absolutely do.
Hmm.
Think about collateral damage versus civilian casualties. Think about expats versus immigrants. The label dictates the level of empathy we're allowed to feel. Golden Acres is just the most extreme, visceral example of that mechanism at work.
I want to go back to the Golden Stick branding for a second. The source material describes the packaging. It's not bloody, it's not graphic, it's beautiful. It looks like a high-end steak you'd buy at Whole Foods. It's vacuum sealed, maybe with a sprig of rosemary on the front.
The aesthetic of goodness, this is another layer of the critique. We assume that if something looks clean, it is clean. We associate minimalist design and high production value with trustworthiness.
Oh,
If
absolutely.
Golden Acres was selling this meat out of a rusty truck, we'd be horrified. But because it's in a biodegradable, compostable package with a nice logo, we hesitate.
That hesitation is real. I found myself reading the section on the culinary profile of the meat, which describes it as lean, red, and earthy. And for a split second, I wasn't thinking about the dog. I was thinking about the flavor profile. I was thinking about the cooking instructions.
That is the power of context. The pitch deck builds a context where eating this meat makes sense. It frames it as a culinary adventure, a sustainable choice, a moral act. It surrounds the taboo with so much valid-sounding logic and beautiful imagery that the taboo just starts to dissolve.
It's manipulation, pure and simple. But it's the exact same manipulation used to sell us, well, everything else.
It is. The source is satirizing Golden Acres, but it's really satirizing us. It's satirizing our willingness to believe anything if the ESG score is high enough and the website is pretty enough. It's challenging you as the listener. How much of your own morality is just branding?
That brings us to the outro of the source material. It fades out with this lingering question. The expert in the text asks, if it's humane and sustainable, does the species really matter?
It's the ultimate trap. Because if you answer, yes, the species matters, you have to explain why. Why is a dog special? Is it intelligence? Pigs are incredibly smart. Is it social connection? Cows have best friends. Is it just because they are cute?
And if you answer, no, the species doesn't matter, then you have to accept Golden Acres.
Exactly. It forces you into a corner. Either you admit that your morality is based on arbitrary cultural habits, like we don't eat dogs because we just don't, or you have to accept the horrifying logic of the pitch deck.
It strips away the comfort of consistency. We like to think we are consistent moral agents, but this source proves we're just picking and choosing based on what makes us feel good.
And that's the definition of cognitive dissonance, holding two conflicting beliefs at the same time. I love animals, and I eat factory-farmed meat. Golden Acres just turns the volume on that dissonance up to 11.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left looking at this pitch deck again. The smiling founders, the sage green background, the platinum ESG badge. And I realize I'm not just looking at a joke about eating dogs. I'm looking at a blueprint for how every major corporation sells us things that might be ethically questionable.
It's a lesson in literacy. When you see sustainable, responsibly sourced, ethical, you have to ask, according to whom, and what reality is that language trying to hide?
Because if you don't ask those questions, you might just find yourself nodding along to a pitch that turns your best friend into a protein vertical.
And once you buy the language, you've already bought the product.
That is a disturbing thought to end on. But hey, that's why we do these deep dives, to look past the font choice and see the reality underneath.
Even if the reality is something we'd rather not see.
Thanks for listening. And next time you're at the grocery store, maybe read the label a little more carefully. But I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. In a world completely driven by optimization, by efficiency, and by sustainability metrics, where exactly do we draw the line between a resource and a friend?
And is that line as solid as we think it is?
Something to think about. We'll see you in the next deep dive.